views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm your host, Gary Axelbank, filling in for Darren Jaime today. And we will update you today on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up on the show today, we'll give you an update on what's been going on in the Bronx. Plus, President Trump escalated his feud with Senator Bob Corker after this senator let it be known that he thinks the president's actions can potentially lead to World War III. Trump also challenged Secretary of State Rex Tillerson after reports surfaced that he had called him a moron. We'll discuss the president's comments with our political commentator. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and today we'll find out the importance of that along with the benefits of getting a mammogram when we sit down with a doctor from St. Barnabas Hospital. After that, we'll sit down with an organization that provides middle school students and their parents with the assistance they need to navigate through the high school application process. And then we'll hear about an early childhood development and parent education program that will ultimately help kids succeed in school. All this and much more is headed your way because now we and you are officially open. Hi there, I'm your host, Gary Axelbank, filling in for Darren Jaime, and today is Wednesday, October 11th, and you are watching Open, a live program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set, maybe even your computer too. We want to encourage you to stay connected to us. You can find us on Twitter at BronxNet TV and Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. Well, a lot has been going on over this busy week, and we will catch you up with some Bronx updates. Last night, Mayor de Blasio faced Republican Nicole Malliotakis and Independent Bo Dietl in the first televised mayoral debate. The mayor entered the debate with a 44% lead in the polls over his fellow candidates. Now, the candidates touched on finance, transit repairs, and shared their opinions of whether or not Rikers Island should be closed. According to the New York Times, Malliotakis and Dietl spent a lot of time criticizing de Blasio, but some critics said they fell short on offering their own ideas and plans. The second debate will be held on November 1st. Governor Cuomo has announced that major shipments of supplies were delivered to Puerto Rico as part of the Empire Relief and Recovery effort. More than 425,000 supplies were collected and donated by collection sites across New York City. They were delivered on 2 cargo flights chartered by the global and music company Tidal, which delivered 400,000 pounds of supplies. JetBlue transported an additional 25,000 pounds of supplies on a passenger flight. In addition, Tidal has supported additional transport of 100,000 pounds of much-needed supplies to Puerto Rico, and that came from Miami. Well, so far, New York's personnel commitment includes 124 National Guard military police, 60 National Guard soldiers, and 50 state troopers. Mayor de Blasio has announced funding for a new youth court in our home borough of the Bronx. The program would allow training for young people to serve as jurors, judges, and attorneys, as well as to practice solving cases. The Bronx happens to be the only borough to not have a youth court. In all the other boroughs, the youth court is used to help the youth give back to the community, gain leadership skills, and help their peers avoid the justice system. Mayor de Blasio stated young people must have the confidence in the criminal justice system that starts by learning how it works and by seeing themselves as part of the administration. Overall, the program would be administered by the Center for Court Innovation and will cost about $300,000 a year to operate. Well, Phipps Neighborhood Sonia Sotomayor Bulldog, a youth program in Soundview for youngsters between the grades of 5 and 12, are creating a community watch website. The website would allow residents to anonymously submit information concerning crime, land use and misuse, homelessness, and violence. The idea of the website originally came from a crime tip phone line created by the students themselves. The phone line would encourage callers to submit tips regarding criminal activities in their neighborhood. The group has gotten funding from the Department of Youth and Community Development for Young Men's Initiative, along with a $2,000 grant from the Allstate Foundation. The goal was to not only help the neighborhood, but give students a learning opportunity to create a website. The website is said to be done by December of 2017. Well, Congressman Adriano Espaillat held a conference describing his visit to Puerto Rico, along with different ways people can give back to the island. BronxNet reporter Shanice Powell has that story for us.
Congressman Adriano Espaillat, upon visiting Puerto Rico post-hurricane disasters, returns to the Taino Towers Senior Center to inform the nation of the island's current state. He and a number of community leaders implores the U.S. not to ease up on providing helping hands.
The spotlight needs to continue to remain on what's happening in Puerto Rico. It is essential that we continue to talk about this. We want what we deserve as American citizens. In Katrina, there were over 20,000 troops on the ground, over 200 helicopters. The problem in Puerto Rico is not regional, it is the entire island. We are supposed to have the entire naval fleet as best we can go to every corner.
America's island has extreme needs for supplies and for services. But one of the things that is extremely disturbing to me is that we knew from the beginning that this was going to be the storm of all storms. But they did not prepare for this storm and took too long to get there. But we are there now, and we need to work with FEMA in every single way to help and get more supplies.
There is a real positive energy. There's a lot of resiliency on the island. There's a lot of creativity and entrepreneurship that has been developing. So we want to bring all that energy to the table as we talk about the future of Puerto Rico. And I know that I'm interested in being part of that conversation and continuing to use my platform to engage in that.
In an effort to cover Step 7 of his 10-point plan to address Puerto Rico humanitarian crisis, Espaillat discloses how they will practically meet the needs of the families.
We will begin to knock on the doors of the hospitals across the city and the New York State Greater New York Hospital Association for their help. We have the commitment of private airplanes that will fly those children in with a family member, and we will rely on people that work in the non-for-profits to see where they could lodge some of the family members while the children are here.
From BronxNet, this is Shanice Powell.
Shanice, we will take a break and we will be right back with Open.
I'm only 17, but I know about investing. Believe in something, buy shares in it, watch it grow. So, what if you could invest in the future? The future of kids, like a stock. Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change. A whole new kind of investment called Better Futures. When you invest, it helps kids go to college. I could be one of the first college graduates from my family, the first philanthropist from my neighborhood. And if I'm the first, then maybe there's a second and a third. Believe in us, invest in us, watch us grow. My name is Sydney, and I'm your dividend.
Even if I try, even if I We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Back with you on Open. In an interview with the New York Times, Tennessee Senator Bob Corker said that he feared that Trump was steering the nation on a path to World War III. Supposedly, Secretary Tillerson went on to call the president a moron, causing the president to challenge Tillerson in an IQ face-off. In the midst of all of this, the EPA has signed a measure to repeal Obama-era carbon emission rules. Here to talk about these and other latest political topics, welcome the owner of Retrovision Media. Welcome back, Lee Bynes. Nice to see you.
Good to be back.
I guess it's really welcome to me because I'm usually not here, but you're here every week. So let's start with Senator Corker's comments, and then he gave that interview to the New York Times. How outlandish is it for the Republican senator to come out against the president so directly as he did?
Well, you know what? I think if the GOP was honest, there would be a lot more senators and House representatives weighing in on this. There's an issue going on in the White House with regards to the president's fitness for duty, as they say. And we've been seeing this from his constant tweets that have been getting himself and the United States in a lot of trouble, both domestically and with foreign policy. 140 characters is absolutely no way to treat these issues that we're facing right now. So when Bob Corker mentioned that the White House was acting like an adult daycare center and folks are not paying attention, I think there's something there to be concerned about.
Isn't it ironic, or maybe we should say, isn't it obvious that three of the senators who have actually come out to directly criticize the president, Republican senators, are all three who are retiring? It would seem to me there's just an immense amount of fear from Republicans to stand up and, frankly, do what John McCain did and do something that contradicts the president's wishes.
Well, few senators or Congress people have as much stock as John McCain. It's troubling.
In other words, that he could afford to take that risk.
Precisely. Most people understand the risk that they would take to go against the president. Any criticism, constructive or not, will not be tolerated. They will face a tweet storm as a result of it. They could face a primary challenge as a result of it. So the only way to get an honest answer out of a GOP representative is that they have to have already made the decision that they're not going to run again.
Some of the items, and let's talk about this rollback of the Obama EPA environmental policies, would seem to be very obvious. If you were to drive through Texas, for example, right now, you will see all kinds of wind generators and solar generators. In other words, the state of Texas in many ways has endorsed the idea of alternative energy, yet none of the Republicans down there will come out and say, you know what, maybe it's not a good idea to roll back some of those environmental policies.
It's a fear factor.
You think it's simply fear? And I'm going to make another suggestion after you finish what you're going to say.
I would suggest that it definitely all goes back to the fear factor of the retaliation that Donald Trump has a proclivity for. So if you don't want to face Steve Bannon and his crew on the outside, and he's been making a lot of noise suggesting that Bob Corker probably should resign for making the statements that he has. So it's all rooted in fear.
My contention would be that they were so happy and so relieved to finally get control of the White House, the Senate, the House, and even the Supreme Court, that they were afraid to kind of put all that in jeopardy by speaking out and, showing like, well, you know what, we supported this guy before, but maybe it was a mistake. I think that they're very worried about breaking their unity and coalition, which maybe they don't really have in the first place.
In a situation where things are making sense and there's a logical thinking process going on, I would agree with you. However, yes, they have the control of the House, they have the control of the Senate, and they have control of the White House. What they don't have control of is Donald Trump. He's a wild card in this whole process. One could say that he is a loose cannon. He could go off on anybody at any time in any direction. And without having that kind of control, it's impossible to get any legislation done. Relying on John Kelly, the Chief of Staff, to rein him in, if you will, it is not working.
So, and you bring up really what I was going to talk about next. So then Rex Tillerson calls the president a moron, and you've got your Secretary of State, you've got your Chief of Staff, you've got people throughout the administration who clearly seem to not be very happy. Taking a step back, is it possible to operate an effective administration in that way when even the people on your own team are not really speaking with the same voice?
Well, I think you answered your question already. The obvious answer is no. There's been absolutely no major legislation passed through the course of the president's tenure so far with regards to the tax reform and the tax cuts that he's trying to get through. With him going after senators the way he have, it doesn't seem to me that that's going to happen as either. So yeah, things are in total chaos, and the fact that we're talking about these things, the fact that Rex Tillerson is saying or alleged to have called the president a moron, the fact that Bob Corker did indicate that this man could be leading us down the path to World War III. That sends a message not to the domestic audience, but that sends a message to the international audience. Everyone is wondering, is this possible that the leader of the free world is unfit for duty? And if he is, are there any protocols in place to deal with that particular instance? These are dangerous times. Make no mistake about it.
I guess I have the toughest question of all, and I'm going to ask you to solve America's problems right now.
In a minute. We'll do it in 60
Stop
seconds.
complaining.
Yes.
Now we're going to try and get you to do that.
Okay.
What are the answers? I mean, aside from what may come out from Mueller's investigation and the Russia investigation, I mean, nobody really knows at this point. You don't know how that's going to turn out. But what are the answers to either get a unified administration with a cohesive policy that is in shape or in sync with subordinates and other people in the administration? How do we make Americans feel better that their country is moving in the right direction, aside from kind of the literal civil war that we've got going on?
Well, you know what? That civil war is occurring inside the Republican Party in and of itself. But how do you get everybody on the same page? I would say that's impossible under the current set of circumstances. But I would say this. I made a note this morning that the most powerful man in the world, or person in the world, believe it or not, is not Donald Trump.
I was going to say, if you were going to go there, I was going to say maybe he's not.
The most powerful person in the world at this point is probably the CEO of Twitter. That person, no, really, that person could put an end to a lot of this right now by canceling the president's account. Now, I know that might sound like a ridiculous notion, but if you really think this through,
tough guy.
If you really think this through, if they took that platform away from him, and I would agree if it happened, sure, he would have a freedom of speech argument to make, but that platform could not be used for this man to trigger World War III. And that's precisely what could happen based on what's going on right now.
What do you think the president's real motivations are? I mean, we were talking beforehand, and I'll say unabashedly, I think that there's an ethnic component very directly to his wanting to remove Obama's name, not only change policy, which he would be entitled to do, but he's stated he wants him to wipe him out of the record books. It would seem, I mean, that's never been said by any president, even, Obama after George Bush, and they had severe disagreements, but he would never say, let's, pretend he was never the president. Is there a racial component to this?
Well, you know what, I cannot speak for what Donald Trump has in his heart. I can only go by his actions and how he responded to the Charlottesville incident, how he responded to the incident in the event, the hurricane in Puerto Rico, how he responded to the Muslim ban and the building of the wall. So one could make that case if you wanted to, but factually speaking, it seems to me that the president, as you indicated, is looking to wipe out all of what Barack Obama's administration did, from a legacy standpoint. He's destroying, but he's not building anything. Outside of his insistence upon building a wall, we really don't have any idea of what Donald Trump really wants to do, because his agenda is always modified or muzzled by the tweets, and the tweets seem to take precedent over everything.
What do you make of the kneeling down controversy and the fact that the vice president went to a football game and allegedly told his staff, hang out because I'll be leaving very shortly, so it certainly seemed like it was a staged event, so to speak. What do you make of all of that?
I think the president,
especially in light, in light of the fact that there are major issues in North Korea. We have disasters in California. We've had disasters in Florida, disasters in Houston, and then of course in Puerto Rico and in Mexico.
Not to mention tomorrow he'll be issuing the decertification of the Iran deal, which would cause a plethora of issues going across the world. That deal was made through the P5+1. The UN Security Council has signed off on it. The international community has signed off on it. He wants to break that deal. Going down the road, would the North Koreans have any inclination to work with Donald Trump moving forward? If it was me, I wouldn't. He can't be trusted. So to answer your question, the president created another divisive issue, another distraction, and by doing so, he's created a constitutional crisis with regards to whether or not an individual has the right to express their free speech.
I guess we could all say we may miss the old days of just conservatives and liberals debating the issues, because now we've gone off into another whole plane.
Yes.
Lee Bynes, it is always a pleasure to talk about what's going on with you, and we, or Darren will have you back here next week.
Well, the pleasure is all mine.
Thank you so much. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. More Open after this.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Well, Thomas, you've got prediabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have prediabetes. Big time.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent. We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness. I am a witness. I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
Every parent has to deal with going through the process of helping their teen pick out the right high school. The process can sometimes be confusing and overwhelming, but our buddies at Breakthrough New York, a nonprofit organization, helps both students and parents with the process. Here to share some high school admission tips, please welcome Breakthrough New York's Senior Site Coordinator, Yasmin Castro. Nice to have you with us.
Nice to be here. Hi.
Let's talk in general, before we get into specifics, in general about what the high school admission or selection process is like.
So in New York City, it's one of the most complicated high school admissions and selective processes in all the country. We have many different options. There are about 435 public high schools in New York City, along with independent schools and also boarding schools and many different options and Catholic schools. Charters all over the city. So there are so many choices for our students. And each of these sort of sections has a different way of getting in. Some of the processes including things that people know, like the SHSAT, so the Specialized High School exam. And then there's also applications for the public schools, there's applications for boarding schools, there's applications for independent schools, there's exams that you take to get into Catholic schools.
I'm confused already.
Yeah, so it's daunting in general, and it is a process that is different for each sector that you're looking into.
I'm guessing, and I think it's a somewhat educated guess, that the institution of the New Century schools, where they took a big high school like Evander and they split it up into 4 schools, or really all of the other big schools that were split up in that way, has contributed to this confusion. If you are a parent of a youngster who says, well, you know, I'm very interested in technology, or I'm very interested in social services. Can you find a school that feeds that, and are the school's themes consistent with what they were originally set out to do?
There are many schools that have themes and that have sort of focus on a specific sort of specific topic for the students. So, for example, schools like Ness plus M, which their whole focus
what
is on Ness plus M.
Ness plus M.
Their entire
Gone are the days when we could just say Clinton or Roosevelt.
Yes, their entire focus is sort of on technical learning, on STEM, etc. Those schools exist, but many of those schools, again, are competitive, right? So that means that there's going to be an entrance exam, or there's going to be some sort of different level into getting accepted to that school beyond just saying, this school I want to go to, I live in this zone, I'm going to go there specifically.
Can those kinds of admissions requirements be used as inspiration for middle school students to say, you know, if you're interested in this, here's a little more incentive for you to go to school and pay attention and kind of do a little better? Or is it middle school students so hard to reach that that never becomes a factor?
Well,
I'm hopeful is what I guess
that's
I'm
partially
saying.
what we do at Breakthrough. So with our program, what we do is we support middle school students, and we start, our entrance point is in the 6th grade, but they start immediately right before the summer of their 7th grade. And once they come into our program, we start to instill that information about high school. We talk to them about how they need to keep their grades up, how they need to sort of look into schools. We support parents who don't necessarily know the system and create sort of a center and an area where they can really understand this process, and then we support them throughout that. Because it is very important for your middle schooler to have an idea of what they're looking at very early on. They shouldn't just be looking in the 8th grade because it is so complicated. So we try to get to them, and our students are very open and receptive to that because I think there is the knowledge in New York City about how complicated the system can be.
435 high schools. I guess I recall from many years ago when I was younger that there probably was a book, or nowadays I guess you could find online. Is there a way that you could sift through all this in a cohesive way so you could say, well, I like this, I like this, I like this. Let's make these, let's say, my 5 or 7 top choices?
One of the things that we do is we create a list. There is a public school directory that is available to all students, and you can find that online. And there's also still that physical book that is given to students so that they can look at that. But one of the things that we say with our tips for being able to apply to high school is that if you are going to look into the schools, researching 435 schools is impossible.
It's pretty tough.
So we say to go in with an idea of a topic that you're interested in. So I'm interested in sciences, or I'm interested in STEM, or I really want my schools to have advanced placement courses, and find a school and sort of go from there rather than necessarily just diving into the book immediately.
You know, many students, even when they get through high school and when they enter college,
Yeah.
don't really know what they want to do. And
Yeah.
certainly if you're going to trickle that down, there's no way many middle school students can say, oh, I'm interested in, you know, one thing over another. What does a quote-unquote general student do in that circumstance when they say, well, I don't really know what career, I don't, you know, middle school students, they don't know.
I would say the thing that is helpful is, one, to sort of call on your peers. That's part of, again, another thing that our program allows, is that you have peers within the program. Because our program goes through college, our students all have this sort of connection to students who are in high school, students who are in college, and so they can do that. So look at your peers and look at the schools that they're at. There are also open houses all throughout New York City. They start in the spring, and they also go throughout this sort of fall semester, which allows students to go and see and feel those schools so they can have a better idea of what they want to look for. Because I think the best idea for students is that fit, and so going to those open houses, going to those fairs is going to help to siphon down.
Aside from having the database and having the information and having the processes, what does Breakthrough New York do? Like, how do you implement this program? Do you know, just drop in on a middle school and say, hi, we're here? Do you have regular programs? Do you run seminars? How does it work so that you can actually effectively inspire students to do and parents to do the right thing?
Our middle school programming is very comprehensive. So we have after-school programming at each one of our sites. We have sites in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. And that after-school programming, when we start in September. Our focus is solely on our 8th graders so that they can do application processing, and we can help them with sort of list building and being able to get started. And then we bring in tutors that help them with their schoolwork. Those tutors are all high-achieving high school students who help them with all their schoolwork. And then we have other sort of programming that allows that. Our summer programming is also very intensive, and we always have high school application sort of classes within that summer programming to help them get started. So we look at it as a very strategic move so that we can work with our kids in different levels to get them through that process, because we do have to provide a lot of services to them because we know how daunting it can be.
And I can tell you, Breakthrough New York is doing a great job. I'm going to just, from the interviews we've done on TV and from what I've heard from parents, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So what's the advice for a middle school parent, maybe even a middle school student who's watching us right now? What are you telling them about doing this process right so you get the right conclusion?
I think the first thing I would tell to any parent is to breathe. Because
you know, you're right. I got to take a deep breath.
It can feel a little tension filled.
Daunting, yeah,
and it's daunting.
And you want to do the right thing.
And you want to do the best for your student. I would say to breathe and just take a moment. I would say to also make sure that you're paying attention to your students' demeanor and allowing them to breathe, because this can be very daunting. And then to look for support in any program, in any way that you can. Whether the support is within your schools, all schools have counselors, and counselors are working very hard, but they're working to be able to support you as much as possible.
That's good. Don't go it alone. Right?
Don't go it alone, and also just making sure that you're sort of allowing your student to have options. Look at all the different choices.
And you know, the one thing you didn't outwardly say, but I'm going to say, look for Breakthrough New York. How do they find you if, let's say, the after-school programs that you're talking about are not necessarily available in every single school? How do they find Breakthrough New York? Can they access your programs? Can they talk to you or others and find out what to do?
Our program is open to students all over New York City. Our program has an entrance point. Your student needs to be a 6th grader, and they need to be high achieving and also low income. So we have certain levels of that. Our application opens in November, and so I would go to our website, btny.org, and start looking at that in early November to be able to see if your student can apply. And then once your student applies, they go through an application process with us, and hopefully we get them into our new class, and they'll be with us for the 7th grade.
I'll tell you, one of the things that will help parents breathe if they sit down and listen to you, because the process is daunting, it's very difficult, But it is very comforting to know that there are excellent organizations like Breakthrough New York that will be able to help students navigate this difficult but very important time. How do they get to you? There's a website. There's
So btny.org is our website, and that's the best bet.
All right, there you go. Yasmin Castro, thank you so much. Say hello to all my buddies over there at Breakthrough New York, and we hope you'll come back and visit us sometime.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We are going to take a break, and you're going to take a break, but then we'll come right back. Don't go away.
Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Open up your books to page 360.
Did you just look at your phone while you was in class? You played yourself.
Talking about inspirational quotes.
You gotta believe in yourself. Don't ever play yourself. The key is to make it, so make it.
Louise, can you give me an example of an inspirational quote?
Don't play yourself. The key is to make it.
And who said that?
I did. Now that's a major key alert.
Learn the real major keys to getting to college at getschool.com.
I guess sometimes things just happen. Devastating things. Your whole world changes in an instant. That's what happened to me the day my mother had a stroke. I'm Paul George, and I want you to spot a stroke fast. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. Protect the ones you love. Spot a stroke fast.
Hey, this year, BronxWorks is celebrating 25 years of the HIPPY program. That's H-I-P-P-Y. It's a program that gives parents the tools to be their child's first teacher and ultimately helps children become successful. Here to tell us more about the program, please welcome BronxWorks Development Director, my old buddy, Ken Smalls. Nice to have you with us, Ken.
Gary, it's good to see you again.
Always good. Ken, so I don't have to, was just telling the producer, I don't have to remember it. What is HIPPY and what does it stand for?
It's not long hairs from the 1960s. It stands for...
neither of us have anymore.
Yes, we're now gray hairs, but it stands for Home Instruction for Parents of Preschool Youngsters. HIPPY is a program that's now been in existence going back to 1969. It's a program that actually got its start in Israel, and Dr. Avima Lombard was the woman who created the program. And the idea was to provide parents with children between the ages of 3 to 5 with activities that could help stimulate their brain development and could also serve as a pathway in terms of entering school.
The mayor, who is running for re-election, of course, is boasting consistently about the UPK, and also now they've extended that downward. Mm-hmm. Does this replace that, or does it enhance it? Where is that in relation to what has happened in the city's expansion of UPK?
One of the wonderful things about the HIPPY program is it can work as a standalone. That is, parents can work with their children individually, or the HIPPY program can complement the experiences that a child may have at a child care center, in an early learning program, or as part of a family child care provider network. Mm-hmm. So HIPPY's wonderful in the sense that you can do it alone, or you can do it as a complement to something that's based in a center or a school-based program.
And is it implemented like after school? Is it that kind of a thing that a parent would bring their child there?
Well, the structure of HIPPY is a little different, and I emphasize the fact that it's home improvement, which means it's home-based. So what typically happens is a parent will work with their child. We have a curriculum. So for the 3-year-olds, there's a curriculum. For the 4-year-olds, there's a curriculum. For the 5-year-olds, there's a curriculum. The curriculum runs for a period of 30 weeks. And the expectation is that the parent will commit to working with their child each day, 5 days a week, possibly 6 or 7, for somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes a day. We provide the parents with books. We provide the parents with other materials. We have parent educators who do role-playing exercises with the parents so that the parents will feel comfortable in terms of implementing curricular activities with their children. So that's the basic hippie model.
We talk all the time, everywhere we go, and I mean, I'm talking about all of us, about the importance of parents reading to their kids, of parents being engaged in a child's development, parents being engaged in their education. This is really forcing the issue on that very vital component of a child's development.
I think what hippie does is it gives parents who may not have a lot of tools, some simple tools that they can use to help engage their children. It's a program that's great in the sense that essentially we provide the materials. What the parents have to do is to provide the energy in terms of making it happen.
How many, currently, how many children and parents or families are involved in the program at this point?
The current program that we have at BronxWorks has an enrollment of about 50 families with about 55 children. Over the years, we've engaged about 2,000 families and about 2,200 children. And these are children and parents from here in the Bronx, from a number of communities here in the Bronx.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question that I know the answer to. Whether you track them or not, I think there would have to be encouraging signs that if you participate in this program, your child will do well, they'll do better, even through preschool and the early grades, but then be, better have their feet on the ground as they go through school.
Yeah. One of the wonderful things about this program is it not only helps the parents with their preschoolers, it not only helps young people when they're preschool children, but the effects, the impact of the hippie program extends well into the educational pipeline. So you may start out as a parent with a 3, 4, or 5-year-old, and what you find is the things that you started with that child when the child is very young in terms of engagement, you continue to do things with that child as she or he progresses from elementary school to middle school, even into high school. So parent engagement is something that's important, and it's a long-term impact that hippie has. The other impact is in terms of children academically who participate in the program. Their gains are not only gains that you see when they're in kindergarten or the 1st grade, but they're gains that oftentimes extend into middle school and high school.
Ken, we talk all the time, you and I and people in the social service community, about parenting and about, listen, if you're a young parent especially, you're out in the wilderness. Nobody ever really, nobody taught you how to be a parent. I'm guessing that an important part of this education through the hippie program is that the parents do better also. The parents become better parents.
It helps. It definitely helps in terms of parents acquiring some of those residual skills that are necessary in terms of really learning how to engage their children. We've had a lot of parents say to us that prior to the hippie program, they really didn't know how to interact with their children. And as a result of hippie, and as a result of hippie having the kind of structure, but also at the same time having flexibility, it's really allowed parents to be in a position where they can become better parents.
I got to tell you, I love this. I think, much like the Breakthrough New York thing, I think this is so vital. You got 50, I'd like to see you have 500 for all I care. The supervision of it, you monitor the progress of the interactions, or you kind of give them the materials and hope for the best? How does that work?
One of the things that we do is at the start of the program, we assess where a child is. We do an assessment midpoint, And then at the end of the program, we do an evaluation to determine what kind of progress has the child made with respect to a number of education indicators that we track over the course of a 30-week period.
So 30 weeks really takes you from like September to June, or something of that.
It runs to like
numbers.
March or April or so. If we start a cycle, say September, October, the cycle of activities will end March, April. That's kind of like the one-on-one activities that the parents do with each of their children. We also have a number of workshops and group activities that are geared more towards the parents themselves.
Listen, think of how wonderful it is to engage the children and parents together like that. How do they get in touch with the program? What do we do?
We can call area code 646-393-4009 for additional information regarding the BronxWorks Hippie program, as well as the upcoming event that we're going to have, which will celebrate 25 years of the Hippie program, as well as to celebrate a collaboration that BronxWorks has had with the National Council of Jewish Women.
You have space, I know they're telling me I got to wrap up, but I got to know. You have space for more youngsters and families to be involved in this?
Give us a call.
I like it. 646-393-4009.
You got it.
Listen, BronxWorks has been saving the Bronx for generations, and we appreciate everything you do. Always, Ken. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary.
Ken Smalls from BronxWorks. We'll take a break, and we'll be back.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul.
All right, we are back with you on Open. According to the latest statistics, 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer, a startling and disturbing number. As part of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we have invited a doctor here to Open to give some insight on the importance of getting a mammogram, and he can also talk about the very innovative 3D mammography at St. Barnabas Hospital. Please join me in welcoming the Director of Breast Surgery at St. Barnabas, Dr. Bert Peterson. Dr. Peterson, nice to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The numbers, the 1 in 8 is positively frightening. Why is the incidence so high? Do we know?
Well, we don't necessarily know.
To solve the
medical
question of the ages.
You know, it's a great question, and I think it's, you know, when we say 1 in 8, I like to actually give those numbers a little bit differently, so to put some meat on it, so people really get what we're pointing to here. Because in the grand scheme of medical problems, it's almost like a public health epidemic. Because what we're actually saying is that every 13 minutes, a woman gets diagnosed with breast cancer in this country, and every 3 minutes, a woman dies from the disease. And so these are numbers that have kind of like hovered about the same. Where we are doing better is that we're now able to diagnose breast cancers, more breast cancers at earlier stages, which is what's really important. Because despite all of the advances that we've made in the treatment of breast cancer, like real estate, where the most important thing is location, 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 in cancer, it's early detection, early detection, early detection. So the numbers are staggering, but we're doing better in terms of the fight because we're picking up more cancers early.
You know, when you talk about prostate cancer, in many cases, in colon cancer, if you get that early detection the way that medical technology is right now, there's no guarantees, of course, but we're really doing a lot better in curing it and treating it and having people have successful results. Are we doing similarly with breast cancer?
Yeah, because of the screening. The better we're able to screen women and the more we get women to come in and get screened for breast cancer, then we're more likely to pick up those cancers at early stage. And the earlier the stage of diagnosis, the better we are at actually being able to treat and ultimately beat the disease. Like, for example, you mentioned colorectal cancer. Actually, if we screen people for colorectal cancer, we could probably eliminate the disease. Yeah,
absolutely.
So screening really plays a vital role in the treatment, the overall treatment and survival from breast cancer.
There is a great irony in our borough of the Bronx where we have the most wonderful healthcare institutions maybe of any city or any municipality in the world.
Right.
Yet we have people who don't get to access healthcare, who are, you know, I hate to put it this way, living on the outskirts, don't get treated, don't have exactly what they need. Do you have a sense that you and St. Barnabas and all the Bronx hospitals are reaching the women to get them to get that screening, or do we still have a big informational and access issue in order to be able to do what you're hoping to do?
Well, I think you're bringing up one of the biggest issues that we deal with healthcare in the country, which is the idea of equal access to quality healthcare, right? So making sure that people have access to healthcare and that they have a medical home. At St. Barnabas, we have a huge commitment to that. And in fact, we have the only mobile mammography program in the Bronx, and that mobile mammogram machine, that van goes out and hits every zip code in the Bronx. So we are out there not waiting for people just to come into the ivory tower, but we're in the communities working with community leaders and our partners, our stakeholders in this fight, and actually setting up screening events for women to meet them in their neighborhoods. In fact, our mobile mammography unit is out every day this month. And we're pretty much booked for all of November.
Do you have a sense of how many, for example, using that mobile mammography unit, how many people you get to treat and see? I know it's not sufficient. We want to get every woman out there to do it, but can you give us some
Usually when we go out in the van, we're able to capture anywhere from 20 to 40 women in a day, depending on the location that we hit. And then those women, once we've done the screening mammograms, if we detect abnormalities, then we get them into the hospital.
That's the crucial part.
Right, and we make sure that they have access to health care. In fact, we're able to pick up on our mobile screening van, about 25% of the biopsies turn out to be cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just think, it's horrible to think, but think about if you weren't doing that, you'd have 1 in 4 walking around with a problem that is likely going to get worse and potentially be deadly. I want to ask about technology.
Yes.
And St. Barnabas, and that brought a smile to the doctor's face because St. Barnabas, one of the leaders, and you've got something new and exciting and important. Tell us all about that.
Well, the newest trend in mammography right now is 3D mammography, which is where we're now able to look at the breast three-dimensionally. And we are the first hospital to have a comprehensive 3D program, meaning not only are we able to screen women using 3D mammography, but we're able to do the biopsies as well with the 3D technology.
Less painful, less intrusive.
Absolutely,
all that kind of thing.
Yeah. It uses less time. We don't have to compress as much, which is one of the biggest complaints that women have with getting mammography. And then we're also able to get better pictures. We're able to see through any type of breast tissue, whether you have dense breast tissue, very fibrocystic breast tissue, we're able to get much, much better pictures than we did before.
I know with colonoscopies, they talk about virtual colonoscopies and all those kinds of things, but if I understand it correctly, the medical community is inconclusive about whether it's as effective as the more traditional colonoscopies. Is this 3D technology as effective, or are there still some bugs, so to speak, that need to be worked out?
Not only is it as effective, it's actually more effective.
Way
more effective than traditional, and it's been approved by the FDA. So in fact, 3D mammography is picking up breast cancers 40% more often than in traditional 2D mammography. So it really is here to stay. It is the way of the future, And
again, less intrusive, less painful. We know about
right, and less radiation, which is one of the other things that women complain about. They're worried about getting breast cancer from mammography.
Do you do traditional mammographies? I guess you would do it in the mobile van. You would do traditional, or is this now the technology that is running the show?
Yeah, we've already invested in 3 units, so pretty much we're going to be phasing out 2D mammography.
Great.
Yeah, we're really investing in the health of our community and in the women whose lives we've been entrusted with. So this is here to stay for us, and we only, I can only thank the administration at the hospital for actually making that investment, because I see them only going further with this.
You got to. I mean, frankly, what you've told us here today is very hopeful.
Yeah.
The numbers that I started with, 1 in 8, it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But, we can handle this. So what would you recommend for somebody who's watching us right now, a woman who's watching us, and frankly, even men, as I understand, can have the issue, maybe less so, but do they just pick up the phone and call? Do they call their own provider? How can they access the kind of care, the specialized care that you and St. Barnabas can deliver?
Well, you can absolutely call the hospital directly at 718-960-9000 and ask for the breast clinic, and they will put you right through to my office, and you can make an appointment that way. Or you can come through a referral from your primary care physician. That's also a viable option as well.
People will want to know about coverage. Is the new treatment, for example, covered? Because a lot of times new treatments, well, that's okay, but my insurance provider won't cover it.
Sure. Well, we're lucky to be living in New York State. This is one of the best states if you're going to get sick, New York State. So New York State actually
Bring
covers.
Us, you're tired, you're poor.
Absolutely.
You're
I tell people this all the time. I thank the people. But the bottom line is we have a free and low-cost mammography program in New York. So whether you can afford it or not, we take care of you.
Don't hesitate. Dr. Peterson, thank you for all the lives you save and for all the people that you treat and for all of our great people at St. Barnabas. Tell them we said hello.
And thank you for having me.
Folks, guess what? We have come to the end of our program. We want to thank all our guests for joining us and for viewers for tuning in. If you missed any part of the show, you can catch the re-cablecast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum 67, Verizon Fios 33. You can watch anytime at the web at bronxnet.org. And guess what? We're no longer open. We're closed for now. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Look at your phone while you was in class, you played yourself.
Talking about inspirational quotes.
You gotta believe in yourself. Don't ever play yourself. The key is to make it, so make it.
Louise, can you give me an example of an inspirational quote?
Don't play yourself. The key is to make it.
And who said that?
I did. Now that's a major key alert.
Learn the real major keys to getting to college at getschool.com.
You made your house a reality. Homeschooling yourself on loans, color-coding listings, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. If you can ace house hunting, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.